Under the topic food biotechnology, we shall deal with the genetically modified organisms. First, let us look into the definition of what do we mean by genetically modified organism as defined by World Health Organization. So, genetically modified organisms can be defined as organisms in which the genetic material, that is the DNA, has been altered in a way that does not occur naturally by mating and or natural recombination. That is, you do not see an organism, it may be a plant or animal or microorganism, that is not present in the natural form. They are not formed either by the mating nor by the natural recombination as you have seen in the bacteria. So these organisms are known as genetically modified organisms, usually formed by the interference by the man. The technology is often called as modern biotechnology, gene technology, and recombinant DNA technology or genetic engineering. So, you have seen that we have spoken a lot about these topics, such as like micro injection, electroporation, gene gun or biolistic method, or agrobacterium mediated transfer method. All these molecular biology method are used to bring about transformation in the above said organism. It allows selected individual gene to be transferred from one organism into another organism, and that organism may be related or they not may not be related to each other. That is between non-related species too. Food produced from using genetically modified organisms are often called as genetically modified food. So the crops created for human animal consumption using these molecular biology techniques to get the desired trait is known as genetically modified food. So, as we have spoken previously, the genetically modified crops currently in the market are mainly aimed at an increased level of crop protection through the introduction of resistance against plant diseases caused by insects or virus, or increased tolerance towards herbicide. Okay, herbicide tolerance is achieved through the introduction of gene from bacteria which is able to convey resistance to some of the herbicides. So these all, if you look into, we can see that we have boosted the agriculture, medical, and food industry market. So we shall look into some of the examples of the genetically modified organisms. And this golden rice, we have already spoken about it. You can see this is the chromosome of the rice, wherein the scientists have genetically modified it. They've taken the ferritin gene is transferred into the rice from the bean, and the ferritin protein increases the iron content of the rice. Metallothionein gene is transferred into the rice from the wild rice. This metallothionein protein supplies extra sulfur to increase the iron uptake. Thirdly, the enzymes for beta carotene synthesis are transferred into the rice from daffodils. Beta carotene, a precursor to the vitamin A, is synthesized. For details of this, you can look into our previous topics wherein we have explained about what type of genes are involved in it. So, as I said, like golden rice is a boon to the entire population of the world, particularly As I said earlier, in African countries, most of the children, by the time they reach the teenage, they lose their eyesight, particularly because the food what they eat or what they consume is not fully having this beta carotene or the the vitamin A. Not fully, we cannot say there is absence of this vitamin A or the precursor beta carotene. So one way what the scientists thought is like food is a staple food which is used by most of the countries around the world. So they thought of let us modify the rice in such a way that it is able to produce the beta carotene. And today we see that it not only produces beta carotene but it also provides the iron and the sulfur. So here next you can see that this is an example of genetically modified food. The first genetically modified food to come into the market, which is known as the Flavor Savior. So the first genetically modified whole food Flavor Savior tomato was marketed in the United States in 1994, but it is no more available in the market because it's had its own drawback, which we are not going to go into it deeply. That is particularly it had to deal with the industries which were into production of these tomato. So the idea behind this flavor savior was our tomato has to ripen. But you know that as the tomato starts ripening, it becomes soft. And once it becomes soft, it decays. Why it decays? Because of the microorganism which try to inhabitate into this organisms. So the intention of the scientists were that let the tomato ripen, but what we shall do is we shall delay the softening of the tomato plants. So it was very well known that polygalactonase is an enzyme which is actually bringing about the softening of the fruit. How? Because this polygalactonase is an enzyme which is naturally found in the food which can degrade the pectin. Now, where is pectin? Pectin is present in the cell walls of the plant or the fruit. So, this pectin gives the mechanical strength to your tomato. So, as the tomato starts to ripen, what it causes, the polygalactonase concentration increases in the tomato, which can degrade the pectin. So the idea of the scientists was to decrease the polygalactonase activity by using the antisense technology, and thus to produce a fruit, to produce a tomato plant that can ripen, but the softening process is lowered or it is slowed down. So this slide you can see and very interesting chicken. Okay, so these are the two feathered chicken peck around in some grass in May 22 2002 at the Hebrew University. So this was a project carried out by the Israel wherein they were able to breed the hen which were featherless. So, what according to the project leader they tell is that this hen has the same taste or this chicken has the same taste as the normal chicken what humans consume, and it doesn't cause any harm to the health. And this grow faster and the meat is low in fat. So according to the project leader, they say that these birds have advantages because there will be no need to install air conditions for them in warmer countries, because when you're growing these poultries in the warmer countries, you know that chickens will be caged. Okay, and there are so many chickens are put into one cage. So what happens? You have to really provide an ventilation or air condition. Therefore, such type of wild chicken requires no air conditions. However, the genetic scientists admit that the new species of the chickens are unlikely to adapt to the old climates. Okay, because they don't have feathers, then how they are going to protect themselves against the cold climates? So, so if this was the advantage, like if they are going to have, they grow faster, produce a very good low fat meat, have a same good taste and cause no harm, can be grown in the warmer climate without air condition. But at the same time, we can see that they cannot be grown in the colder climates. Also, the Russian experts have found that another serious drawback in the new species of chicken, the absence of the feathers, will create discomfort during the mating. So, when pairing, the rooster may injure. Okay, that is during the mating, the rooster may injure the hen with its nail and beak because it has no feathers on the head and the neck. Moreover, the absence of the feather reduces the chicken's resistance to many skin diseases. Birds will be consistently subjected to bacterial or fungal infection through the skin injuries which have been caused. So these are the some of the drawbacks, even which the the Israel project leaders have also accepted, but still the project is being continued. So next comes our Enviro pig. So this Enviro pig is a trademark. Okay, now you all know about very well about the trademarks and all, as you have studied about in the patent. So the Enviro pig is a trademark. It is industrial name for the pig that has been genetically engineered to excrete less phosphorus in its fecal matter or in the feces. So you know that phosphorus from animal manure is a nutrient for the plants that become a pollutant if there is too much of it for the crops to absorb, and excess runs off into the streams and lakes. So now what happens? The animal, the fecal matter in the animal acts as a nutrient for the plant because it contains the phosphorus. Now how much phosphorus a plant can consume? How much ever it want, only that much it can consume. Remaining, what happens? It is being flown away by the rainwater into the lakes or into the ponds. Once it reaches there, what it causes? It is causing the water pollution or ultimately leading to environmental pollution. Because when they reach the lake or ponds, what happens there? The plants starts to flourish, and those animals which are beneath the water, you can see that they are not able to survive because the plant covers the water and the sunlight doesn't reach these smaller creatures in the water, and ultimately bringing about the imbalance. So this Enviro pig is genetically engineered to produce an enzyme known as phytase in the salivary gland to enable more effective digestion of the phytate, the form of phosphorus that is found in the pig feed ingredients like corn, soya bean. So, whatever the pig feed they're providing, like this corn or soya bean or barley, they contain what? Phytate. What is a phytate? It is a phosphorus which is in the bounded form. That is, it cannot be digested. So what happens when the pig eats? The phosphorus is not absorbed by the pig because it is in the bounded form, as I said, and these are thrown away from the body. Okay. So this, once it is removed from the body of the pig, what happens? The phosphorus content in the soil increases. So now what the scientists have done is they have introduced this phytase enzyme in the salivary gland of the pig. So when the pig feed on these phytate, it breaks down the phytate. That is, the phytase enzyme breaks down the phytase so that the phosphorus is freely available. And then it is absorbed in the stomach, the duodenum, and finally in the liver. And then when the excretion matter, when a fecal matter is produced, it contains low phosphorus. So even in the urine, you see excess of the phosphate not needed by the tissue just comes out. So these problems can be sorted out by introducing the phytase enzyme. And usually this phytase enzyme, from where they have introduced this, they have isolated this phytase from the E. coli, from the gene of the E. coli, and introduced into the pig. And also they have introduced a mouse promoter. We know that whenever we are introducing the genetically, the target gene has to express. If it has to express, then we need a promoter. So the promoter is taken from the mouse. So we have the gene encoding for the phytase from the E. coli. Now the pig can happily eat all your whatever food you're providing, because the phosphorus is now easily available for the food in the free form to the pig, thus reducing the pollution. Then we can see this strawberries. We cannot grow strawberries in all the countries. Okay, suppose say that if you're growing the strawberry in temperate countries, it's not possible because of the cold condition over there. But now this is also possible because they have taken the Arctic fish DNA, okay, which grows in this cold climate, and they have engineered it into the strawberry. So a strawberry resistant to frost can be now developed. So now we can develop the or produce the strawberry even in the temperate countries or even in the cold countries. And has so this is one more interesting genetically modified potatoes. You studied one more example, tomatoes, okay, wherein the potatoes containing the starch, we already know that it contains a high amount of starch. We introduce more amount of protein into that potatoes. That is was the tomato. And another example for genetically modified potato is the amflora. Okay, it is a starch potato developed by the BAS for the production of special starch. Okay, the potato consists of two types of starch. One is the amylose and another is the amylopectin. One is the straight chain, the other is the branched. So instead of the regular 20 to 80 amylose amylopectin mixture in a typical potato, so this is the percentage of the content of the amylose and amylopectin in the normal potatoes. 20 is to 80 is the ratio. This amphora has been genetically modified to contain only amylopectin, the branch 1. The messenger RNA containing the direction for making amylose is intercepted by the antisense RNA. That is, by using antisense RNA, they have seen to that the amylose is not produced. The translation of amylose doesn't occur, so that my potato contains only amylopectin. So this gives the starch superior property for variety of technical applications such as making the glossy paper, binding concrete. So these are the advantages. Instead of just having the advantages of eating the potatoes, we can use it in some of the industrial applications such as in the paper making or in the concrete. Then we have the salt tolerating tomatoes. Now there are so many regions wherein the soil contains very high saline. So this salinity, the plants cannot grow in the high saline conditions. So genetic engineers, what they have done is they were able to grow produce tomatoes which can thrive in the or grow in the soil condition which is having a very high salt. For example, this new GM tomato crop thrives in the salty irrigation water because the scientists have engineered the plants that produce higher level of transport proteins. So what this transport proteins does, the increased level of transport protein move the salt, okay, because the plant absorbs the minerals and water from the soils, right? So the salt is also enters into the plant. Now what happens, your modified, genetically modified tomato which is having this transport protein, they move the salt to the vacuoles where it is unable to restrict the cell's biochemical activity. So all the salts will go and get concentrated inside the vacuoles of the tomato, and now it is not able to restrict the other activities of the tomato. So most of the activities occurs in the leaves of the plant, making the quality of the fruit unaltered. Thus, it is able to thrive or grow in the salty condition area also. So coming to the milk, the milk contains recombinant bovine growth hormone. The hormone injected from the bacteria allows the higher milk yield by keeping milk producing cells alive in the cows for longer than the normal. So here what is the intention? The intention of the scientists are that the cow is able to produce milk for the longer duration of time by keeping the cells, that is the milk producing cells, alive for longer period of time. How? By introducing the recombinant bovine growth hormone from the bacteria. Similarly, you can see that bovine somatotropin, also known as the bovine growth hormone, is an animal drug approved by the FDA to increase the milk production in dairy cows. So, this drug is based on the somatotropin naturally produced in the cattle. So, the somatotropin is a protein hormone produced in the pituitary gland of the animals, even including the humans, and it's essential for the normal growth and development and the health maintenance. So, the FDA has approved this bovine somatotropin product which in 1993 with the brand name known as Posilac. I shall write the name. So this is the brand name. Okay, the FDA has approved this bovine somatotropin in 1993 in the name known as Posilac. This is C. Okay, so as I told, this is a recombinant bovine somatotropin. Sometimes it is also known as recombinant bovine growth hormone. It is present even in the animals, even it is present in the human also. So it is genetically engineered copy of naturally occurring hormone in the cow. So when the recombinant bovine somatotropin is injected into this dairy cow, it stimulates the production of like even IGF-1, that is the insulin like growth factor, which milk production increases as much as 10 to 15%. Okay, and this insulin like growth factor is a natural hormone found in the milk of both cows and humans that causes the quick growth of the infants. But again, all like any of the genetically modified food products, we saw that in the chicken also they had some drawback. Similarly like this, even in this cows also they have seen some drawbacks because it has a negative effect on the health and the reproductive system of the cow. And lastly, we shall see that the Molly sheep, okay, the Rosalind Institute and PPL Therapeutics were successful in cloning two sheep. The name was Molly Polly, who carried the human gene code for the protein factor 9. So this factor 9 assists in the blood clotting, and protein is used to treat hemophilia B. As you have all studied in the genetics part, hemophilia, because that is what it is, a profuse bleeding. There is no clotting. That clotting factor is not there in the individual. Particularly, you see this feature in the male. So what happens is ultimately they will lose the, even a small cut will result in the profuse bleeding. Ultimately, it can lead to the death of the individual. Therefore, blood clotting factor is necessary, and one blood clotting factor is the factor 9, which is being produced in this um, Molly Polly sheep. The hope with Molly and Polly was to create a herd of sheep that would produce the milk containing the factor 9. The only other source of factor 9 was from the human blood plasma. Apart from that, now we can produce it even in the sheep.